This World Heavyweight Championship has become a pretty hot topic in the world of sports entertainment in the last couple of months because people want to see it back. The WWE title was combined with the World Heavyweight Championship, which was originally for WCW in 2014, and a ladder match between Randy Orton and John Cena. 2 years later, in 2016, the WWE would introduce a brand new World Heavyweight Championship, now the Universal Championship, which originally was red and looked like the original one, just with a different color, which has changed over time. It had the W on the front and everything. Now fast forward to 2023, and a portion of the WWE audience is clamoring for the big goal to be brought back. Are you, the viewer and supporter of the channel, one of these people or not? If you are, I'll be here in this video to explain to you what the prestige of this World Championship means and the best runs that were had with the big gold in my opinion. WCW was pretty big back in the day, and they wanted a World Championship for the program Nitro. The NWA got a big World Championship for their company, and it was the original big gold. Eventually, WCW would take the big gold and make their own version of the World Championship, which debuted in 1991. From the 90s all the way to 2001, through this run, you saw so many different world title reigns, starting with the best according to a lot of different sources, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, the guy from WCW. This guy held the WCW Heavyweight Championship a total of 6 times and holds the record of the longest reign. What he did as world champion is not to be taken lightly. He really made an impact in WCW by debuting in the NWO, having an audience tune in to watch, and he won the title pretty much right away, and when he did, famously sprayed NWO on it. This is still looked at as an iconic moment in wrestling. This reign would last from pretty much his beginning in the company all the way through Goldberg's rise, which he eventually put over in an electrifying match on Nitro. Anyone would have thought it was a pay-per-view though. This crowd was hot, and Goldberg and Hogan put on a star-making performance which probably made for the most memorable moment in Nitro history. Now onto a WWE version of the Big Gold Championship, the real meat of this video that I know more about. When WCW went out of business in 2001, it was bought out by WWE, and The Rock would win the first ever WCW Championship at SummerSlam in a dream match. The WCW Championship would later on in the year be unified to become the WWE Undisputed Championship. What really would get this title rolling though was in 2003, when WWE had undergone a brand extension by that point, which ended up causing an issue for Monday Night Raw. The Undisputed Champion at the time, Brock Lesnar, and he was signed by Stephanie McMahon exclusively to SmackDown, which meant that, well, Raw didn't really have a world champion. Kind of like the US title is the main championship on Mondays now because they don't have a world championship. That's the same thing back then. Back in the day though, they decided the show really should have a world championship. Triple H had won the opportunity to be the #1 contender for the WWE Championship, so Eric Bischoff, the then GM of Monday Night Raw, decided to hand the big gold title to Triple H. This started what is known today as the Reign of Terror, a period where Triple H was the main guy at the top of the card, holding onto the big gold world championship across multiple reigns for the next couple of years. With Evolution by his side and his dominance as a singles guy, he kept the belt on him pretty much from 2003 all the way to 2005. His first defense was against fan favorite Rob Van Dam. They had a promo on Raw beforehand where Triple H roasted Rob Van Dam and told him he wasn't championship material. The fans were behind RVD. Then when they faced off one-on-one, Triple H would retain his world championship, making it his first successful title defense. Triple H had a total of around 3 reigns with the belt across these 2 years and had some great matches, but when it really started getting top tier was when Evolution came into play. Chris Benoit had beat Triple H at WrestleMania 20 for the World Heavyweight Championship. A little stable with some potential came into play. I don't know, I think their name was like Evolution or something like that. This iconic stable had the big guys, the future of the WWE, Randy Orton and Batista. And Randy Orton was a young 24-year-old kid making a name for himself. Young Randall had earned an opportunity to face Chris at SummerSlam for the big gold title. And after a match that really, in my opinion, put Randy over as a star, especially with the handshake at the end, he would become the youngest World Heavyweight Champion of all time. And Triple H said, "You gotta be quicker than that." Planned Randy a celebration and had the crew turn on him. The iconic thumbs down would come into play with Batista later too. Randy became babyface, and maybe if he would have been that heel from a few years down the road, he would have stayed world champion. But Triple H took the world title back, and at New Year's Revolution 2004, Triple H would compete for the world championship again in an elimination chamber match, which also had Batista in it. And of course, this subtle, very important moment happened. After Randy Orton had RKO'd Batista, and pin him. Triple H had a chance to save him by breaking up the initial pinfall, but he didn't. He instead decided not to, which leads us to the other Evolution member, Batista. After Triple H had been victorious at the Elimination Chamber, the story of Batista slowly started to build. Slight teases and remarks were made hinting that yeah, more than likely, this was going to be the end of the dominance. Batista would head to Royal Rumble 2005, where in the Final Four, there was Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Batista, and Edge. Edge and Rey had some back and forth before Rey was eliminated, then Edge was eliminated, then somehow the two biggest stars of the Ruthless Aggression era decided to clash, and somehow they went over the top rope at the same time. They got eliminated at the exact same time. A crazy moment, but Batista was crowned the winner eventually after a reset, and this meant now Batista had a choice. Would he face WWE champion JBL, or would he strike first on Triple H and pick him to fight at WrestleMania 21? And then now, iconic contract signing, he put the thumbs down to Triple H, just like Hunter did to Orton, and made his choice. The rest was history. Batista beat Triple H at WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship and snapped that reign of terror. That was one of the greatest championship runs in the history of this championship. It's usually either you love it or you hate it. Up next, Kurt Angle's reign. Around the same time that Triple H was taking over WWE and Batista had established himself as a world champion, a wrestling machine was on the loose. A legit Olympic gold medalist who Embassy got the description wrong. Correction, this should be Kurt Angle won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. Shout out to that one comment. Batista had been legitimately injured, his pec was injured, and he was out to get surgery. WWE would plan a battle royal, and behind this, Kurt Angle was called to pull a trade over to SmackDown, enter the match, and win the world title. Kurt said he was a team player, so he did it. Kurt came out to a huge pop, and the commentators were going irate. He instantly hopped in the ring after his entrance and took out former WWE champion JBL. Kurt Angle was activated. It came down to Rey Mysterio and Mark Henry, with Kurt Angle on the outside. Just look at this picture. Mark Henry ends up eliminating Rey Mysterio and thought he won the match. The commentators were screaming and yelling, "Mark Henry won it!" But on the outside, Kurt Angle was still in the match, and he had that look in his eye and that guard in his mouth. He came in the ring and angle slam on the world's strongest man. The effects of this were mostly felt by Kurt Angle though, as Mark Henry got up first and hit Angle with the splash. The momentum had turned. Mark Henry with a smile put Kurt Angle on the rope and was gonna eliminate him. Kurt Angle got slapped, and like giving a mouse a cookie, he went crazy. He had Mark Henry in the head scissors and was very, very close to eliminating him until Mark got out of it, took back control, and attempted to throw Kurt over again. Eventually, Kurt Angle would put on the leg scissors again, and eventually, and the new World Heavyweight Champion, Kurt Angle. Shortly after this, at the Royal Rumble 2006, Kurt Angle would retain his championship in an underrated bout against Mark Henry. The real match of this run, after the WrestleMania one, is Undertaker. Undertaker would confront Kurt Angle at the end of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and in an iconic moment, the Undertaker would use his powers, and Kurt Angle would end the show world champion in the ring. Following that, on SmackDown, Kurt Angle and Undertaker would have a promo. A face-to-face where Kurt Angle told Undertaker he planned to break his ankle into pieces. Undertaker responded by telling Kurt that he will rest in peace. The match for this pay-per-view is absolutely great. The guys put on a 5-star match, and Kurt Angle would end up retaining his title, heading into WrestleMania still World Heavyweight Champ. At the same event where Kurt defended against Mark Henry, Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio paid tribute to one of his great old friends by winning the Royal Rumble match. A triple threat match was set for WrestleMania 22, where it would be Randy Orton versus Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. Over the coming weeks, promos would be had where Randy Orton delivered the famous Eddie promo. Randy would get involved in Rey and Kurt's matches and attack them. They would eventually end up in interviews which were intense. Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, and Rey Mysterio was a match where Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio were the baby faces who had respect for each other, and Randy Orton was the heel, stirring the pot for them to turn on each other. The interviews were also funny at times. Rey Mysterio came out at WrestleMania 22 with a special entrance. Kurt Angle and Randy Orton came out and were all ready to go. The audience here was really behind the Olympic gold medalist. Right off the bat, Randy Orton grabbed the title and hit Kurt Angle with it before the match even started. This match was fast paced and everyone got their spot. Kurt hit a German suplex on both, which looked satisfying. Randy Orton eventually took control of the match and hit his RKO on Angle. He would struggle to make the cover right away, and Kurt kicked out, continuing the match. Rey Mysterio would eventually catch Orton in the 619 and Hurricane Rana into a cover. 1, 2, 2003. Rey Mysterio was the new World Heavyweight Champion in a fantastic time period. He did it for his best friend. Kurt Angle's title reign ended up being the best on this list in terms of technical matches. This was fire. Speaking of fire, SmackDown 2012 was pretty fire. It really doesn't get a lot of recognition. It might be underrated, but when it does, people usually bring up these topics. Sheamus' world title run, Mark Henry's Hall of Pain, and the one we're going to talk about today, right now, Randy Orton's World Heavyweight Championship Big Gold Run. So around this time when this happened, Randy was on a whole nother level. His character was kind of a hybrid of a baby face and a heel, and besides 2023 Randy Orton, this is the best face run he's ever had. The World Championship was on SmackDown after the WWE Draft. This started the best hybrid run ever. Christian was on the cusp of finally winning the world title in a ladder match at Extreme Rules, and when he did, it made for a feel great moment. The next Friday on SmackDown, Christian was having his emotional title celebration. He had finally won the big one. I hear voices in my head. This song hit. He came out and challenged Christian to a match, in a fantastic match, and RKO would be hit out of midair, and 1, 2, 3, the title reign was over. A storyline like this would probably lead to the person who won the title getting a heel turn, but it was actually the other way around. The guy that dropped the world title was going to be the heel, and this worked. That's what made this so great. Antics like the one more match catchphrase, a contract signing would be set for a rematch at Money in the Bank 2011, where the build was around Christian saying he knew he could beat Randy Orton even if nobody else believed. Sheamus got involved at the end and laid out both. Sheamus really wouldn't play a big role in this rivalry, but that's what happened. There was also a stipulation that even if Randy Orton got disqualified or counted out, the title would still be dropped. Let's just say that stipulation came into play big time with Christian winning back the big gold title at the event. This is where it really peaked. After, they would have a bit of a talk, and then a match would be set for the final time on pay-per-view. Christian and Randy Orton would go one more match. This match absolutely, in my opinion, stole the show. One of the greatest ever. An RKO was attempted on the announce table, but avoided at the last minute, and the world champion attempted to leave during the middle of the match. Look at the ring at the end of the match. Yeah, because during the match, candlesticks were used, tables, trash cans, and an amazing RKO at the very end in mid-air onto the solid steel steps. That was the end of that match and pretty much the rivalry, although they went at it in a steel cage on SmackDown later on. By the way, someone should turn the Randy Power Slam into their finisher. Randy would move on to another challenger, a very strong one, which leads us to our last reign on the list, Mark Henry. Mark Henry during this time was on a tear. The WWE Hall of Pain was in full effect, and I'm sure that name confused a lot of kids. Like, why is Mark Henry beating someone's to get them into the WWE Hall of Fame? Yeah, he was taking people out though. Big Show was the main one by this point. Over the next few weeks, he would target Randy Orton. A match was set for Clash of Champions, and after Orton attempted an RKO, a World's Strongest Slam would be hit, and 1, 2, 3. This started the big gold World Heavyweight Championship run of Mark Henry. From here on out, SmackDown was all about the Hall of Pain. Henry would defend the title against Randy one more time at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which he won. The Big Show feud followed, and here it gets interesting. After the champion refused to give Big Show a title match at the next pay-per-view, Big Show came out and had a brawl with Mark, eventually putting him through a table. This caused for a match to be made at Vengeance, and the main highlight of that match was when the two came off the top rope and imploded the ring. It made for a real moment. Like, yeah, that actually wouldn't seem out of the ordinary if the ring imploded. His reign would end up coming to an end at TLC 2011, where Daniel Bryan successfully cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, which also led to a great run, which leads me to my question. Do you guys want to see a part 2 of this? I feel like I could just make an hour-long video about this belt. It had so many great reigns that I barely even scratched the surface. I didn't even cover The Rock, who's in the thumbnail. This big gold belt, which reflects when you move the right way, has a burgundy leather strap, and ruby gems, has a legacy only a couple of other belts compete with. So many great world champions throughout the 80s and 2010s. Do you want to see it back? Honestly guys, I really enjoyed making this video. Let me know in the comments which reign that we covered has been your favorite, or is there another reign you enjoyed the most? Thanks for watching guys. Like, subscribe, do anything that you know me on my channel popping. Peace out.